What if death is not the end? What if everything we fear is based on a misunderstanding? You've heard the heartbeat slow. You've seen the final breath. You've watched a body grow still, and maybe you've wondered, is this it? But deep within you, another voice whispers, there must be more. That whisper is not imagination. That's the voice of your soul, an ancient part of you that remembers what the mind has forgotten. And today, we're going to listen to that voice. In the words of Deepak Chopra, death is not the opposite of life. Death is the opposite of birth. Life has no opposite. This single sentence opens a door into a universe far beyond what the senses can grasp. And beyond that door is where we begin. Let's start by shedding the old narrative. In modern culture, we treat death like an enemy. We sanitize it, avoid it, fear it. But what if, as Chopra says, death is not a failure, but a continuation, a return? To understand what really happens after you die, we must first understand what you truly are. Not your name, not your job, not your history, but the essence behind all that. The awareness that observes. The consciousness that remains, even when your body sleeps. You are not the body. You are not the brain. You are the experiencer of both. In Deepak's words, the real you is not your body. It is not your mind. It is pure awareness, timeless and unbound. And that changes everything. If you are awareness, then death is not your end. It is a shift, a transformation. Just as caterpillar becomes butterfly, your essence too evolves. At the moment of physical death, Chopra explains, the body dissolves, but awareness does not. You simply move from one plane of experience to another. You don't disappear. You reappear in a different form, on a different frequency. This isn't a fantasy. It's rooted in ancient wisdom, from Vedanta to quantum theory. Chopra blends both, science and spirit. He says that the universe is a field of consciousness, and your soul is a ripple in that field. When the body dies, the ripple doesn't vanish. It returns to the ocean. But what does that feel like? Is there light? Is there pain? Is there peace? Stories from near-death experiences hint at what Chopra believes is true. When the body fades, many feel an overwhelming sense of freedom. Time disappears. The fear disappears. What remains is love and light. One man described it like waking up from a dream, only to realize that this, the afterlife, was more real than anything he'd ever experienced. And this is what Deepak refers to as the non-local self, the part of us that exists beyond time, beyond place. But the soul doesn't just float away. According to Chopra, after death, the soul enters a subtle plane of existence. Not heaven with golden gates. Not hell with fire. But a plane shaped by consciousness itself. Here's the key. The world you see after death is deeply influenced by the state of your mind before death. If you leave life angry, bitter, afraid, your consciousness shapes a reality to match. Not as punishment, but as reflection. And the opposite is true too. If you leave with love, peace, forgiveness, your soul rests in a field that reflects those vibrations. This is what makes every moment now so important, because how you live is how you die. And how you die is how you continue. Chopra teaches that your karma, the sum of your thoughts, choices, intentions, creates the blueprint your soul follows after death. Not a list of punishments and rewards, but an energetic imprint, a resonance, a frequency. And just like radio waves, your soul tunes into the next level of reality based on that frequency. This is why, in almost every spiritual tradition, we're told to meditate, to serve, to forgive, to let go. Not just for peace in this life, but to prepare the mind for what comes after. Because death is not a shutdown. It is a transition, from localized consciousness to non-local awareness. Deepak likens it to the shift from water to steam. The essence remains, the form changes. You move from the visible to the invisible, but not the unreal. In fact, the soul after death may be more real, more awake, more conscious than ever before. You may wonder, what about the tunnel? The loved ones? The life review? Chopra says these are symbolic interpretations of a real phenomenon, the soul shedding layers. First, you leave behind the physical body. Then, the emotional body. Then, even the mental body. What remains is pure essence, your spiritual self. The tunnel of light? It's a metaphor for this shedding. A movement toward the core. And yes, loved ones often appear. Not in the physical sense, but as energies, guides, helpers. Chopra suggests that the soul is never alone. That those who loved you, truly loved you, remain connected across lifetimes. Their presence is part of your transition. And the life review? That too is real. But it's not judgment. It's awareness. You see your life not through the ego's eyes, but through the soul's. You feel what others felt in your presence. You understand the impact of your words, your silence, your love, your cruelty, not as punishment, but as insight. This is the soul's curriculum. You don't pass or fail. You simply learn. And that learning shapes your next step. For some souls, Chopra says, this is enough. They rest. They merge with higher planes. They expand. But for others, the journey continues. Not because they are cursed, but because they are curious. The soul wants to grow, to refine, to awaken fully. And for that, it may choose to return. Yes, reincarnation. Deepak Chopra doesn't describe reincarnation as recycling. He describes it as evolution. The soul isn't forced back. It chooses, based on its desires, its lessons, its longing. If the soul still carries attachments, unfinished business, deep desires, unresolved karma, it may return in another form, another life, another body. Not as punishment, but as opportunity. And just as the soul chooses where to go after death, it chooses how to return. This is why Chopra says, you are not the victim of your circumstances. You are the architect of your experience. Even death follows that principle. But here's the paradox. The more conscious you become of your eternal self, the less you fear death, and the more fully you live. Because if you know you are not this body, not this moment, not this identity, then you are free. You are free to love without fear. Free to forgive without pride. Free to let go, knowing that nothing real can ever be lost. This awareness changes how we live. It makes us gentler, kinder, more awake. Because now, every encounter is sacred. Every breath is a miracle. You don't wait for death to wake up. You wake up now. You see that the veil between life and death is not a wall, it's a doorway. A threshold. A pause between symphonies. And once you cross it, you don't become less. You become more. Chopra encourages us to meditate not just for peace, but to train the mind to stay aware beyond the body. Meditation teaches you to witness. To disidentify from thoughts. To rest in being. And that skill, cultivated now, becomes the flashlight that guides you after death. Because here's the truth, nothing is lost. The love you gave, the lives you touched, the wisdom you gained, it all travels with you. And even after death, you are still becoming. Still evolving. Still a soul in motion. So if you've lost someone, know this, they are not gone. They have simply shifted form. Their awareness is still alive, just on a higher plane. And your connection with them is still real. Speak to them. Love them. Remember them. For in doing so, you touch the edge of eternity. And if you fear your own death, don't run. Sit with it. Breathe with it. Make peace with it. Because death is not an ending. It is a homecoming. You will return, not to nothingness, but to everything. To the source from which all things arise. To the field of consciousness where no one is ever truly lost. Where love is the only language. And light is the only law. And in that field of light, in that ocean of love, something incredible happens. You remember. Not just this life, but all lives. Not just this body, but all forms. The soul begins to expand, like ripples returning to the sea. You begin to realize, I am not just a person who lived for a while and then died. I am a timeless presence. I have always been. I will always be. In Deepak Chopra's teachings, this is called unity consciousness, a state where the illusion of separateness dissolves. You are no longer you in the way the ego defined you. You are not your story, not your trauma, not your nationality, not your face. You are existence itself, experiencing itself through infinite expressions. And yet, you are still you. Your soul maintains a unique vibration, a frequency, a memory of its journey. You are like a note in a grand cosmic symphony, distinct, but inseparable from the whole. This paradox, of being both individual and universal, is the secret to understanding life after death. In the beginning of our journey, we believe we are the wave. After death, we realize we are the ocean. But even in the ocean, the wave's beauty remains. So what happens next? For some souls, this expansion is so blissful, so complete, that they merge fully with the source. What spiritual traditions call moksha, or liberation. A return to pure being. No longer cycling through lives, no longer bound by karma, just eternal presence. But other souls, perhaps most, still carry impressions. Deepak refers to these impressions as samskaras, energetic imprints of desires, fears, and attachments. These impressions gently pull the soul back toward the manifest world, like gravity calling a leaf back to earth. It's not punishment. It's momentum. The soul begins to review its karmic threads, relationships unresolved, lessons unfinished, acts of kindness that long to be completed. And slowly, a new incarnation is shaped. But this time, it's different. The soul isn't choosing blindly. It chooses based on higher wisdom, guided by love, not fear. Deepak says that between lifetimes, the soul meets its karmic advisors, beings of light, not gods to be feared, but guides to be trusted. With their help, the soul understands its patterns and maps out a new life that supports its evolution. You may choose your parents, not because they are perfect, but because they offer the soil in which your next lessons can grow. You may choose challenges, not as punishment, but as growth. You may even choose to meet certain souls again, to love more deeply, to forgive more completely, to awaken more fully. Life is not random. It is designed by consciousness, for consciousness. And so the soul descends, slowly, gently, into form. From the subtle plane, it moves into the astral. From astral, into energy. From energy, into biology. Until finally, birth. A newborn cries, and no one hears the memory of lifetimes echoing behind that cry. But deep inside, the soul knows, I have returned. And the journey begins again. Not from zero, but from expansion. The soul brings subtle memories, intuitive wisdom, inexplicable longings. That déjà vu? That sense of knowing someone you've never met? That's the whisper of your eternal self. This cycle, from birth, to life, to death, to rebirth, is what Deepak Chopra describes not as a circle, but a spiral. You're not going in loops. You're rising, each life bringing you closer to wholeness. And in this view, nothing is ever wasted. No tear, no mistake, no heartbreak. Everything contributes to the evolution of your soul. So why fear death, when it is part of your awakening? Why run from endings, when they are simply new beginnings in disguise? When you truly understand this, something in you softens. You begin to forgive more easily. You begin to live more fully. Because death has no grip on a soul that knows it cannot die. This awareness reshapes how you relate to others, too. You stop seeing people as temporary characters in your story. You begin to recognize them as eternal travelers, some journeying beside you for lifetimes. Every encounter becomes sacred. Every goodbye becomes a see you again. And this brings us to one of Deepak's most powerful teachings. Healing is remembering who you are. Not just spiritually, but even physically. Because the fear of death is the root of many illnesses. When you live in anxiety, believing this life is all you have, the body contracts, the mind tightens, and suffering deepens. But when you realize, I am not this body, I am not this fear, I am awareness itself, something unlocks. You begin to heal, from the inside out. You become less attached to outcomes, more present to the now. You stop chasing immortality in the world, and start embracing eternity in your being. Even grief becomes different. When someone dies, you no longer believe they are gone. You know they've shifted. You learn to talk to them differently. To sense them in silence. To meet them in meditation. And sometimes, in those quiet spaces, you feel it. A presence. A warmth. A knowing. That love never dies. Because awareness never dies. Because you never die. Death, then, becomes the greatest teacher. Not because it ends life, but because it reveals life's true nature. And the greatest irony? It takes facing death to learn how to live. To laugh more honestly. To cry more freely. To love more deeply. To forgive more fully. This is why Deepak Chopra invites us to meditate not just to quiet the mind, but to wake up the soul. Each breath in meditation is a rehearsal for that final breath, a reminder that you are more than breath. You are the silence between. So, how should we live, knowing what we know now? Live with intention. Speak with kindness. Walk with awareness. See others as souls in progress, not enemies, not strangers, but fellow travelers. Practice compassion, not because it's moral, but because it's natural when you remember who you are. Let go of what no longer serves you, not in bitterness, but in peace. Trust the timing of your life, and your death, because you've been here before. And you will be here again. Each life is a chapter in a book that never ends. Each death is a comma, not a period. And you, yes, you, are the author. So write with courage. Live with grace. And remember, you are not on the journey. You are the journey. You are not chasing truth. You are the truth. You are not facing death. You are returning home. And when that moment comes, when your eyes close for the last time, don't be afraid. Smile. Let go. And whisper to the stars. I remember now. I am ready. Because in the end, there is no end. There is only love. Only light. Only you. Alive, eternal, and free. So as we come to the close of this journey, let's remember. Death is not the end. It's a doorway. A return. A release. A sacred transformation. Not a vanishing, but a homecoming. You are not just a body. You are not your fears, your pain, or even your name. You are awareness itself, eternal, luminous, unbroken. And when the time comes to leave this life, you won't go empty-handed. You'll carry the love you gave, the truth you lived, the lessons you learned. That is the real wealth of the soul. So don't wait for death to remind you of what matters. Live now with presence. Love now without hesitation. Forgive now, because your soul came here to be free, not to hold on. You came into this world with nothing but your breath, and you'll leave it carrying only your consciousness. Make it rich with peace. Fill it with grace. And when you finally cross that threshold, may you recognize yourself, not as someone who died, but as someone who woke up. Because in truth, you were never meant to end. You were always meant to return. And maybe, just maybe, that's what life and death have been trying to tell you all along.